Hey builders, before we begin, I have a quick question for you. Are we connected on social media? The reason I'm asking is because as much as I love giving you the podcast episode every single week, I'd love to take our relationship deeper. So if we're not connected on social media, let's connect. I'm on LinkedIn at Robyn_MindSteps. I'm on Twitter at Robyn_MindSteps. I'm on Facebook at Robyn Jackson. Please, let's connect so we can keep the conversation going. Now, on with the show. You're listening to the School Leadership Reimagined podcast, episode 241. How do builders like us make a dramatic difference in the lives of our students in spite of all the obstacles we face? How do you keep your vision for your school from being held hostage by resistant teachers, uncooperative parents, ridiculous district policies, or a lack of time, money, or resources? If you're facing those challenges right now, here's where you'll find the answers, strategies, and actionable tips you need to overcome any obstacle you face. You don't have to wait to make a difference in the lives of the people you serve. You can turn your school into a success story right now with the people and resources you already have. Let's get started. Hey builders, welcome to another episode of the School Leadership Reimagined podcast. I'm your host, Robyn Jackson, and today I'm going to talk about the 5 lessons that I learned in 2023 that I'm taking with me into 2024. This is one of my favorite episodes that I do every year. A lot of times in the new year, people, do their list, their in and out list, their, all those things. And I spend a lot of time in that time between Christmas and New Year's really reflecting on the year and collecting some of the big lessons that I've learned and reminding myself of those lessons as I go into the new year. And I always love sharing those lessons with you. When I was putting together this list, I really thought each of these really could be a podcast episode. And so at some point, I'm going to do a longer episode where I break these lessons down a little bit more. But for now, I thought I'd share with you my list. And then that way you can take these lessons and see if they are relevant to your work, to your world. And if so, you can apply these lessons to the work you're doing to help you be more successful, achieve your vision, your mission, your core values. I found these lessons so valuable to me and so helpful to me, and I hope they do the same for you. All right, so lesson number 1, and this is one that I have been really struggling with all year long because I have some goals and some things that I want to accomplish. And I'm frustrated because they're not happening in the timing that I anticipated. And so I am one person who's really, I'm always thinking about the next thing. I'm always chasing the next shiny object. And this is a lesson that I learned this year that has really kept me from chasing shiny objects and helped me to stick with things, to stay the course, even when things get hard. And the lesson is this: success is simply a matter of doing the right things long enough. You see, I think that a lot of times we expect success to happen right away. I know I do. I want, this is the way I do the thing and then I'm successful. And part of the problem is that a lot of that has been reinforced throughout my life, like that you do something and you experience success pretty quickly. But a lot of the things that are really worth doing, the things that are going to have the huge impact, take more time. And so once you understand that success is just very simple, there's not some complicated formula for success. It really is a matter of just doing the right things long enough. It changes your whole perspective, right? So there are only two parts to the formula to success. First of all, making sure that we are doing the right things. And then second of all, making sure we do those things long enough. And so I've spent a lot of time this year really simplifying what success looks like for me and for the folks inside of BU. So the first part, doing the right things. In BU, we've kind of laid out what are the right things, and we've really gotten good at that. I mean, we have honed it in. And it's different for each person in the sense because it depends on your vision. But once you understand your vision, we've been working really hard on something we call the one plan. And the one plan lays out what are the right things? What are the things that we should be doing right now in order to achieve success? And we work with people and we've got a process down. And we're actually, for those of you who are in BU, we're going to be doing a live one planning workshop sometime in the first quarter, so that if you've done your one plan, we can revise it and make sure it's refined. And if you're working on your one plan, we can help you walk through that process. But the first part, that one plan, really defines what are the right things we should be doing. And we call it a one plan because it's one page. It's not 20-page strategic plan. These are these most important things that if everything else were to fall apart, we know that we could achieve our vision by just doing these 7 things. And so we break it down very carefully. These are the 7 things. They align with the 7 principles of effective instruction. And once you have that one plan, you can really focus. So the first part, identifying what the right things are, that's your one plan. The second part, doing it long enough, we have a 3-year time horizon. A lot of times we think that if we do these right things for 1 year, we're going to just, blow everything out of the water. And it doesn't work that way. Now, with those of you who are in BU, you know this, right? So you work your one plan, you share your vision, you get that initial bump, right? Sometime in that first school year after you start BU, you see that initial bump, right? But we are builders. So while that bump is really gratifying, it proves to us that we can do this. It proves to us that the one plan works. We also know that that bump is not 100%. And so the real work happens after that first bump, right? So you get that bump, you know that it works. It's just proof of concept. The real work happens with maintaining that and then also closing the gap between where you are and 100%. And so a lot of people give up after the first bump. People who aren't builders, they get a bump, they do something, it works, and then they're like, yay, it worked. And then they celebrate that and then ride that for the next 5 years and then look up one day and say, hey, we're not where we should be anymore. And they've experienced decline. But as a builder, you know that that first bump is just proof of concept. And then after that, that's where the work happens. That's where it really starts to get tough. And that brings me to my second lesson of 2023 that I'm taking to 2024, which is that it's easier to show up than it is to stick. Here's what I mean by that. Everybody gives you advice. All you have to do is show up. The hardest part is showing up. I'm not so sure that's true anymore. I think we show up all the time. Every single year, we're showing up. Every year we show up and we're like, okay, this is the year we're going to do this. The hard part is sticking with your plan after the initial bump, after the glow is worn off, because we're tempted and we're trained actually to think that, okay, every year we need something new. And one of the hardest parts about being a builder is that you're not chasing new. You see, if you do the work in your one plan and you really focus and you say, this is it, this is what it's going to take, then you already have said, this is what it takes. This is the right work for success. Now, the second part, doing it long enough, is the hard part because we get distracted, we get bored. There are times when we get discouraged because it's taking longer than we expect. I know I experienced that this year where we had committed to a plan and mind steps for some work that we're going to do to really help our builders grow. And I said, I'm going to do it for a year. I'm going to commit to it for a year. And then I started doing the work. And about April, I got distracted. Stuff was happening in my life. Not bad things, just busy things were happening in my life. I got distracted. And even though on the surface, I was sticking to the plan, I was still doing the stuff, my heart wasn't in it. I checked out. And because I was playing the long game, you know this, when you play the long game has peaks and valleys. So I experienced the initial peak. I got that first bump. I got really excited. And then I hit the valley. And I was doing the stuff that I'd always done, but now it required tweaking. Now it required, you get that initial bump. And so you're a different place. And I made a mistake that I caution the builders in BU not to make, which is that I thought for the whole year, I could do the same thing and not have to revisit it rather than thinking about those 90-day cycles. So you've heard me talk about this before, right? Where you can't plan for the whole year. You have to think in 90-day cycles. You have to go back. You have to think, you have to evaluate your work. You have to look at what worked, what didn't work, do more of the stuff that worked, do less of the stuff that didn't work. I didn't do that. And so I hit a valley about April because after that first quarter, I was like, oh, I'm just going to ride this to December. And it didn't work that way. And so April and May, stuff started not working the same way because I hadn't gone back and revisited. I hadn't reevaluated. I just thought I could ride and rest, on the early wins of the year. No. And so when I hit those valleys, instead of going back and doing what I know to do, what I teach other people to do, I checked out. I just gave up. I walked off the field before the game was over. And I got discouraged. And I was in a funk for probably a month. I mean, on the surface, I was still doing the work. I was still showing up, but my heart wasn't in it. Have you ever felt that way where, you're showing up every day, but your heart isn't in it and you start to question whether it's going to work and you get discouraged. And then because, when I get into the victim loop, those of you you all know what I mean by the victim loop, right? The accountability loop and the victim loop. So when I start, getting into the victim loop, the thing that I do is I rationalize. So I began to rationalize why things weren't working the way they should work. But there was no rationalization around it. It didn't work because I didn't show up. The moment it got hard, the moment that things stopped working as well as they'd worked before, I stopped showing up. I stopped doing the thing that I knew to do. I got discouraged. I felt like I was behind. I felt like, the whole thing was going to fall apart because I'd experienced this valley. And I stopped showing up. And so that's why, for those of you who are in BU, when I tell you you've got to trust the process, I'm not just telling you words. I've experienced it. And it took a while for me to get out that funk. And then I just said, trust the process. And when I did, I got back into the game. I gave my full self into the game, and I was able to finish the year strong. Now, did I hit all the numbers and the goals that I wanted to hit? No. But I understand principle, lesson number one, success is doing the right things long enough. And then principle number two, you got to stay in the game. You can't just show up and expect to be successful. So it's taking longer than I expected it would take. But I'm committed. I'm recommitted to staying in the game. Because I know that if I stick with it and I stay with it and I do what I know to do, then I will achieve success. Now, it may not be on my timeline, but I will achieve it. The people who fail are the people who leave the field before the game is over. The people who fail are the people who give up, even though they know what to do, because it doesn't take the time that they expect it to take. It's not working according to their timeline. The people who give up because at some point they think they can ride. This is work every single day. You can't take that initial bump of success and think, oh, well, I've got it now. No, that is just proof of concept. That just shows you that you've chosen the right things to do. But that second part, you got to do them long enough. That's the hard part. And that's where people fail. I see people who come into BU and they start out gung-ho and they get that initial success. They create a vision. They share their vision story with their team. Everybody's excited. They've got everybody kind of on the same page. And then they think, okay, good. I'm good. I've got a vision. Let me just go back to doing what I was doing. Nope, doesn't work that way. You have to keep at it. There is work. That's why BU is a year-long commitment. That first, you have to commit to at least a year. It's really a 3-year process, but you've got to commit to at least a year because here's what I know. You're going to get those initial bumps. It's designed to give you those initial bumps. But those initial bumps are not enough to sustain long-term success. It takes you an entire year to put some things in place that then you can start to ride on. That's why the first year BU is about establishing the things that you can rest on. You need a whole year to get those things established. The second year is about executing on the things that you established in year one. So the idea around BU is that there is a time where it's not that you rest, but the work changes. The first year is you've got to put some things in place that are missing from your school, that are keeping you from achieving your vision. And a lot of people don't commit to the whole first year. The moment that something happens, they get distracted. They get quote unquote behind in their work. They're like, oh, it's time to give up. No, that's the difference between being a leader and a builder. It comes down to a couple of things. As a leader, your perspective is different than being a builder. But the other thing that separates builders and leaders is builders play the long game and leaders give up before they have a chance to actually see the results and the fruits of their labor. And so builders are building something that will last, and leaders are just chasing the next big win. So I learned that lesson again this year. It's something I know. It's something I teach other people, but I learned it personally because I saw it in myself. I saw myself give up, ride that first wave of success and then give up. And I'm telling you, and when I got my head back together and started back up in May and really got focused, the rest of the year was different. Does it mean I hit every milestone and goal that I wanted? No, but you know what? I know that I'm doing the right work. And if I do it long enough, I'll hit it. But I got to do it long enough. Okay, so that was lesson number 2. Lesson number 3 is related to that. And that is that the key to finding the right data is asking the right questions. One of the biggest wins of the year for me was that for probably the last 10 years, I'm ashamed to admit it, I've been looking for the right data. How do I find the right data? I know that I should be making decisions that are informed by data. I know that I need to watch the data. And I've tried a whole bunch of different things. I mean, you name it, and I've tried it. I've read the books. I've created the dashboards. I've done all the things. And this is the year that I think I finally figured out how to find the right data. And I definitely am going to do a podcast on this because this is a game changer. It's been for me. And those of you in BU, I'm going to see if I can do a module on it to help you set up your data. But that's not going to be until level 5. So there's some other things you need to establish first. And then when you get to level 5, those of you who are heading into level 5, we're going to be looking at data and doing some work around data. And that's going to be really fun. But here's what I've learned. If you try to just look at the data the way we were trained, just look at the data, then you don't really know what you're looking at. Have you ever felt that way? And then you look for something. Somebody says, oh, you need to look at these numbers. So you watch those numbers, but I don't know that they're game changers in the way that you expect them to be. I remember when I was an administrator, I was very data focused. I mean, I was doing spreadsheets and pivot tables, and I don't know that a lot of that data mattered. We spent a lot of time looking at data, and I'm not sure it mattered. I've seen some administrators, create entire rooms of data and data walls and, bubble kids and kids red, green, and yellow and all of this stuff. But that data, it takes a lot of work and it doesn't give you the payoff that you want. And this year, I've really been playing around with simplifying data. And again, I'll go into more detail. We'll have to do a whole podcast about it. But here's what I've learned. A lot of times we start with the data. And what we should be doing is starting with the questions and then asking the data questions and making the data work for you rather than you trying to dive into the data looking for a needle in a haystack. So here's what I mean. There are some very simple questions that Rick DeFore proposed, 20, 30 years ago that we've gotten away from. The first question is, what do students need to know and be able to do? Okay. And then how will I know that they know it and are able to do it? And then what will I do when they show me they don't know it and aren't able to do it? That's about as simple as it. That's what it takes. That's what it takes in order to help students be successful. Hey, it's Robyn here. Real quick, I just want to interrupt this episode for just a second because if you are enjoying what you're hearing, then would you mind sharing this episode with somebody else? So all you need to do is just go to your phone, if you're listening to it on your phone or your podcast player, and then click the three dots next to this episode, and it'll give you the option to share the episode. Now, if you do that, three things are going to happen. First, the person that you shared with is going to think you're a hero, especially if they're struggling with what we're talking about right now. They're going to love you. Secondly, you're going to feel good because you're going to get the word out about buildership and start building this buildership nation. And third, you will get my eternal gratitude because I really want to get this out to the world and you'd be helping me out. You'd be doing me a huge favor. So please share this episode with someone right now who's dealing with this same issue, someone you think would really benefit. And now back to the show. So when you're looking at student data, the first question is, do you know what students need to know and are able to do? And then do you know whether or not students know it and are able to do it? And then do you have an early warning system in place to let you know that the first sign that students aren't able to do what, or don't know or aren't able to do what they should know and should be able to do so that you can intervene? Right? That is really it. I was talking to a principal over the summer, and she was talking about how she was able to help her kids, start from below grade level and get reading on grade level very simply. And this is what she did. Every day she says, what does it take to read on grade level? That was the first question. Right. And then every day she was assessing students on whatever the skill was that they were teaching that day. And then if they didn't know it, she was looking at, okay, how do we intervene? And then did the intervention work? And quickly they started getting rid of interventions that weren't working. They started building interventions they were paying attention to what the kids needed. That's really all they did. And all of our kids got on grade level in a semester just by doing that every day. And so when you're looking at your data, you have to think about your vision. What's my vision? What's my mission? What are our core values? And then every day you're asking yourself, are we making progress towards our vision? If so, what's doing it? If not, why aren't we? We also need to ask ourselves, is the work we're doing on mission? And then are we in alignment with our core values? It's only three questions you really need. And then you look at the data through the lens of your vision, mission, and core values. That's it. That's it. If you did that, then data gets simple. The data actually gives you information you could actually use. And you can move forward faster because you're not bogged down on a whole bunch of numbers that don't matter. So again, I'll do a whole episode on that. But we have really streamlined and simplified our data. It has made all the difference. It has made all the difference for me. Now I look at the numbers. I understand the equation behind the numbers. I know that if I want to get ahead, this is the number that needs to move. Then I focus on moving that number and then I see progress. It's so simple now. And again, it's taken me over 10 years to figure this out. But so I'm working on some equations. For those of y'all in BU, just know that, when you get to level 5, we're going to be really diving into your data and helping you make sense of it based on your vision, mission, and core values. And because you've done all the work in levels 1 through 4, you have some systems in place that are giving you better data. And now we're going to show you how to take that data, simplify it into a very simple dashboard so that you can use that dashboard to make better decisions. So know that that's coming. All right. So that was lesson number 3, that the key to finding the right data is asking the right questions. I'm really excited about that. I'll do a podcast on it later. All right. Lesson number 4 is how we define terms matters. This has been probably the biggest lesson for me in terms of helping me to figure things out. So here's what I mean by that. We talk about things like student achievement. We talk about success. We talk about culture. We talk about staff alignment. We throw these words around in education and we think we know what they mean, but what we think they mean and what somebody else thinks they mean, totally different. And so I have really spent a lot of time this year first of all, defining terms before I do anything else. And it's helped me solve all kinds of problems. Let me give you an example. I was really struggling with culture, thinking about the idea of culture. Culture is nebulous. People have different definitions of it. Some people think culture is, kind of how we celebrate our wins and mourn our losses. So traditions. Some people think culture is really an amalgam of the personalities in the building. People have different definitions of culture. So I really sat down and started thinking about it. And someone defined culture to me. One of my mentors, Annie Hyman Pratt, gave me a definition of culture that changed how I thought about culture. She said culture is just a collection of organizational habits and the stories we tell about them. Once I understood that, so Annie told me about the collection of organizational habits, and then I was thinking about it some more and doing some reading, and then I added the part about and the stories we tell about them. But once I understood that culture is habits and stories, that's it, then I knew how to solve culture problems. Like if you have a messed up culture in your school, look at what are the habits, the organizational habits, what are the stories, and you change the habits, you change the stories, you change the culture. Once culture became that simple equation, we could solve culture. And so that's what we're helping people in BU all the time. People are saying, okay, my culture's starting to suffer. And then I'm saying, okay, what are the habits that are driving this? What are the stories people are telling? Change the story, change the habits, change the culture. It becomes that simple. I didn't say easy because there is a process for changing habits. There's a process for changing stories, but it's simple. You don't have to worry about trying to figure out what to do and trying a whole bunch of things that won't work. You know that if you're going to change culture, it's habits, it's stories, that's it. And so I've been doing that for a lot of terms. We talk about what is a vision supposed to do? What's a mission? What are core values? And once we define those terms and understood what those terms mean, then it's easy to create a vision, mission, and core values that mean something, right? So one of the things that I've been doing a lot behind the scenes, so BU folks know this is coming, is I've been looking at some of the challenges that have come up over and over and over again in office hours. And some of the terms, like the idea around staff alignment, that's a huge thing. How do we get everybody on the same page? Really defining what does that term mean? And when you can define a term, you can solve it. So for me, anytime there's a problem that I am facing or that I'm trying to help somebody else face, the first thing I do is I say, okay, what are the terms being involved? How are we defining those terms? And if you can define the term, really understand what does that thing mean? What is it at its elemental best? Then you can solve problems. So I'm going to encourage you this year. If you feel like you are working with a teacher or your school and things are not rigorous enough, the moment you define what rigor looks like and you help everybody else understand rigor in that way, you solved your rigor problem because you know what it, I mean, when I used to teach rigor, once I defined what rigor was and, I had four elements of rigor, it changed everything because once you understand what rigor is, those four elements, then as a teacher, I can look at a lesson plan and determine whether it's rigorous because I just need to know, does it have these four things? If I'm an administrator and I go into a classroom and I'm trying to understand how to help a teacher, I look for those four elements. Whichever one's missing, that's the one that I support the teacher with to help the teacher become more rigorous. So it becomes so simple. Like the moment that we created that definition of rigor and understood it at those four elements, rigor was easy. Defining rigor was easy. Creating lesson plans around rigor was easy. Observing for rigor was easy. Supporting teachers and providing professional development around rigor was easy. Helping students became easier. Supporting students was easier because we just understood those four elements. So once you define a term, if you're struggling with a problem, if you can look at, okay, what is the problem? And then how do I define that? You can solve the problem. It becomes so easy. So in the coming year, you're going to hear me doing a lot more episodes around taking some of the most elemental problems, challenges, terms in education and breaking them down because once you can define it, you can solve it. And that has helped me. A lot of times when I'm stuck, I sit down and I'm just like, okay, what is the real issue? And I understand that. And I say, okay, so what does it mean? What does it look like? And then it helps me solve it. It's been a game changer. It keeps me from being way too stressed. If I start getting stressed out, I'm like, okay, what is it? And I sit down and I define it. And the moment I define it, I know what to do. Just like success, doing the right work long enough. Look, once I understood, okay, I'm chasing success. What does success look like? What does it mean to be successful? What does it take? Once I defined it that way, I was like, oh, okay. So first I got to just figure out what is the right stuff to do. And then I just have to do it long enough. And then I'll be successful. You can't stop me. After I understood that, everything else just became, am I doing the right work? And have I been doing it long enough? And so I don't get stressed out. When things don't work, I say, is this the right work? And then if the answer is, yeah, I still believe it's the right work, then the next question is, okay, then I just need to do it longer. And I stop getting stressed out about things. This one, it just has saved me so much stress. It saved me so much anxiety because now I know that if I'm struggling with something, if I can understand it and define it, then it stops being a struggle. It stops being a source of anxiety. And I think for a lot of you right now, you're anxious because you just don't know. And if you sat down and you really looked at, okay, what am I really struggling with? And what is it? What is the thing that I'm really struggling with? And how do I define it? Once you sit down and really define it, then you're like, oh, okay, that's all I have to do. I can do that. And it makes it easy. So game changer. All right. Lesson number 5. This one kind of harkens back to a lesson that I learned in 2022, that I took into 2023, and that I learned it again at a different level. And that is, I am the biggest bottleneck on my team. And the same is true for you. Here's what I mean by that. Whenever you are in charge, you are the person, at the front, you're the principal or the superintendent. Then the vision, because the vision belongs to you, the mission is co-created, the core values belong to your team, that you often have an idea and a better understanding of your vision than anybody else on your team. And the frustrating thing is that you are trying to communicate your vision, you share your vision story, you do it once, maybe you do it twice. And people get really excited about it. But when it comes to executing on your vision, people are lost. People aren't sure what to do. People don't do it the way you want it to do. So you jump in and you try to do it. And the biggest difference between being a leader and a builder is that a leader, everything falls on you. But as a builder, you build, but you also build other builders. One of the things you are tasked with building is not just your vision, but building other builders of your vision. And so one of the things that I really struggled with was that I was trying to do everything. And so my team was trying to do everything. And one day I had this epiphany after looking at data, after defining terms, after, really getting that clarity, with the other 4 lessons. And I realized that everybody on my team was kind of had their finger in everything. And what I needed to do was have everybody own one piece of data, own one question, own one thing. The moment I did that, I said, this is what I own. This is what you own. This is what you own. And our meetings changed. Rather than having a meeting where everybody was trying to solve everything and I was jumping into everything, now we have meetings where we are going through the few pieces of data that we focus on every single time. And everybody is responsible for that data. It doesn't mean that they are the only ones working on that data point, but they are the ones responsible for tracking that data. They are the ones responsible for thinking about ways to improve that data. They're the ones responsible for making sure that the work gets done. And it's really empowered my team to step up. It's really empowered my team to take charge. They are now builders. And so one of the reasons why in BU, the level 4 work is really around building other builders is that once you get the systems in place, once you get all the pieces of the process in place, then the last step, so that you're not the only one controlling all these systems, is that you now have to take that data point, that system, that thing, and you now need to give somebody else ownership of it. You are ultimately in charge of coordinating and making sure everything gets done. It doesn't mean you own every aspect of your job. And so if one of the things on your one plan is that teachers are planning in a particular way, then somebody needs to own that. Somebody needs to be tracking. Are teachers planning in that way? Somebody needs to be thinking about ways to help more teachers plan in a particular way. If part of your one plan and your success to move the work forward is that you are giving students more frequent feedback through student conferencing, then it doesn't mean that you have to run around and sit in every student conference or check to make sure that every conference is happening. What one person in your building is best positioned to be in charge of that? They own that. They track that data. That's what they are thinking about. And so rather than you being the big brain, at the center of your school and having brain tentacles that go out and connect with other people, you become a collection of big brains that come together. You can do more that way. And in the past, I've always thought that a lot of us were afraid to let go of control. And so we feel like we have to do everything because we're the ones in charge. I've since revised that. I don't know that we're afraid to let go of control as much as we don't know how to do it. The options that I've done in the past have never worked, right? So either I assign or quote unquote delegate something to somebody else, but they don't really own it. And then I'm checking in with them and then I'm frustrated. And I feel like even though I've delegated it, I still have a hand in what they're doing. And so it doesn't feel like I've actually offloaded that work off my plate. Or then I get frustrated and then I say, I'm going to offload this entirely. You take it on. And what I've done is abdicated my responsibility. But I've never learned how to set up structure so other people can own the work and I can still be looped into what they're doing. I can still have input and I can trust them that when they own the work, they're going to get the work done the way it needs to get done. Now I do. And so that's what level 4 BU is all about. And so those of you who are in BU, when you get to level 4, that's the whole thing. That's really about building other builders. And by the time you're done with level 4, you now have a strong team in place that you can trust to get the work done. And that frees you up to do some of the other bigger thinking that you need to be doing as the principal or the superintendent. And so that lesson has been, level 4 took a long time for us to develop. For those of you who aren't in BU, just know that level 4 took a while, but we finally have it straight now and it's good. And in the process of building level 4, I've actually applied it to my own work and my own team. And as a result, the team is I don't know, it's cooking with grease right now. We're just doing so well because I've finally not delegated, not abdicated, but really built other builders who, I can trust, who are co-workers with me. So it doesn't feel like I'm doing all the heavy lifting by myself anymore. And that's a really good feeling. So those are the 5 lessons. I'll recap. Lesson number 1, success is simply a matter of doing the right work long enough. And lesson number 2, the hardest part is not showing up. It's staying. It's sticking when things are hard. It's the long enough part. And so you've got to just do that. You've got to stick with it long enough. You can't ever leave the field early. That's why you lose. You lose when you give up. You lose when you stop trying. As long as you are continuing to do the work and to try, you will succeed. Number 3, the key to finding the right data is not diving in the data. It's really asking the right questions, starting with the right questions so that you can make the data serve you. Really important. Number 4, how you define terms matters. If you really want to solve a problem, the first step to solving it once and for all is defining the terms involved. And then the last one, you are probably the biggest bottleneck in your school right now. And when you stop delegating or abdicating or just doing it all yourself and start really investing in building other builders, you stop being the bottleneck and your school can just soar because there are other people who own the work alongside you. Now, I know those are pretty complex concepts. I thought about giving you some, fortune cookie platitudes, but you all deserve more than that. So just know that throughout the year, I'll be doing some podcast episodes on some of these concepts where I break them down a little bit longer. Those of you in BU, we're putting modules in place that address these concepts so that you'll have the training you need to be able to apply these in your work because they've been game changers for me this year, and I want you to have access to them as well. So that's it for today. Now, I would love to hear what are some of the big lessons that you are taking into 2024. If you wouldn't mind, would you go to the School Leadership Reimagined Facebook group? And we're going to start a thread there. And then you can share your lessons. I'd love to hear what you're learning. What are some of the big takeaways from the first half of the school year for you? And so together we can take the collective wisdom and stop wasting time and start doing the work that really matters, because we are learning lessons and applying those lessons to our work like builders. I'll talk to you next time. Hey, if you're ready to get started being a builder right away, then I want to invite you to join us at Buildership University. It's our exclusive online community for builders just like you, where you'll be able to get the exact training that you need to turn your school into a success story right now with the people and resources you already have. Inside, you'll find our best online courses, live trainings with me, tons of resources, templates, and exemplars, and monthly live office hours with me, where you can ask me anything and get my help on whatever challenge you're facing right now. If you're tired of hitting obstacle after obstacle and you're sick of tiny little incremental gains each year, if you're ready to make a dramatic difference in your school right now, then you need to join Buildership University. Just go to buildershipuniversity.com and get started writing your school success story today. Hey, it's Robyn here, and I want to thank you for listening to today's episode. Now, if you have a question about today's episode, or you just want to keep the conversation going, did you know that we had a School Leadership Reimagined Facebook group? All you need to do is go to Facebook, join the School Leadership Reimagined Facebook group. Now, there are going to be a couple of questions that we ask at the beginning, because we want to protect this group and make sure that we don't have any trolls come in, and that it really is for people who are principals, assistant principals, district administrators. So make sure you answer those questions or you won't get in. But then we can keep the conversation going. Plus, we do a lot of great bonus content. I'm in there every single weekday. So if you have a question or comment about the episode, let's continue the conversation. Join us at the School Leadership Reimagined Facebook group. And I'll talk to you next time.